Hello, Black Eagles fans. I'm back with another interview for you about our brand new coach, Giovanni van Bronckhorst. I'm joined live right now by Nicky van der Gijp, also a podcaster with FC Afkicken, one of the awesome platforms in the Netherlands that I've made a couple of appearances on in the past as well. Nicky, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks a lot that I can join you. And I'd like to talk with you about Giovanni.
Yeah, Nicky, he was coach of Feyenoord for 4 years, I believe, between 2015 and 2019. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's correct, but he's been there for much longer because he was an assistant for like 4 or 5 years. Firstly, I think it was under Koeman, under Rutte, and he was also coach of the second team. So he's been there since he retired as a player. He was there.
Yeah. I mean, he, like you said, assistant coach. I think also in the beginning maybe there was some issues. His first season didn't go so well, I believe. A 7-game streak without a win. But he prevailed, obviously. Feyenoord kept their confidence, their faith in him. And afterwards he went on to do some great things for the team of Rotterdam.
Yeah, but he had a difficult start because he started the year before that in the playoffs for European football. But that season started well. Then later, Fred Rutte, the coach, was fired and he took over. Mm-hmm. But that team, he couldn't make really anything of it. And he really started off the next year, which was quite a weird season, I remember, because we won the cup. And we won our first prize since I think 2008. So that was amazing. But in the league, like you said, 7 defeats in a row. So there was doubts about him. But the following years, he always did just enough for people to stay confident with him. And he always won prizes. So that's mostly the most important thing.
Yeah, I think 5 prizes in 4 seasons. That's right? One.
Yeah, that's right. The cup in his first season, and then the Eredivisie, which was incredible. Feyenoord hadn't been champions for over 20 years, 18 years. Yeah. It was, I think, 18. Yeah, and the team wasn't like, the players weren't good enough to be champions, because Ajax, who made the Europa League final, had much better players. PSV had much more money. But that season with Dirk Kuyt and others was just, everything clicked. And I think that's what he's the best at, is really making a team that wants to fight for each other. And that team wasn't probably the best footballing team I've ever seen, but mental-wise, it was one of the best I've ever seen at Feyenoord.
Yeah, it's not a small feat, of course, winning the league after 18 years. Maybe Fenerbahce are going to be in a similar position in 8 years. Let's hope so for that. But
special one.
Yeah. I mean, they are in the position, of course, now where they have to win. They were already in that position last season, really. Beşiktaş, of course, with Van Bronckhorst are hoping to build. But, of course, in Turkey, as you know, you don't always get that much time. Do you think Van Bronckhorst is somebody that's going to need a lot of time? Or do you think he can put down a team in a relatively short amount of time, so to speak?
Well, I think he can do it in a short time, because he's a very good manager. Like, he can manage the players, he can build a team, and tactically wise, probably not the most special coach ever, but it's very straightforward. And at Feyenoord, he implemented the style of football pretty easily and pretty fast, but it never was spectacular. So don't expect high pressure, a lot of players going forward. It's, well, defensive I wouldn't say, but it's not the most spectacular football ever. But it's easy to implement, and it gets results straight away.
Yeah, when I was speaking to Nadeem, who's a Rangers fan I spoke to yesterday, about his time at Rangers, he said that the biggest issue domestically was he struggled a lot with low blocks. Now, I know, of course, in the Netherlands, most teams try to play 4-3-3. Most teams try to play attractive football, or to an extent at least. Did you notice any issues in the domestic league where his teams struggled against more defensive sides?
Well, what you said about the Eredivisie has changed quite a lot the past few years, because there are certainly a few teams who don't play 4-3-3 or that attacking anymore, because Feyenoord, Ajax and PSV have so much more budget nowadays and so much better players. They have to defend. But in that time, yeah, we struggled. Not only against low blocks, that was also a thing, but also like just on the ball, like the passing wasn't great, the build-up wasn't really special, and there would be times where like small teams would come to the Gijp and just really play better football. Because it's like I said, like he can set up a team defensively really well, but the build-up, the patterns, those are not really the best, and that's also why we struggled against smaller teams, because there really wasn't a lot of patterns in the attack which could break down the opposition.
And is that really an issue, you think, with his tactical approach, or is it also maybe down to the level of quality of players he had? I don't remember what players they had, but wasn't Jurgensen the striker the season they won the league?
Yeah, the season they won the league, he was a striker, and he was absolutely amazing that season. It was also the only season he was amazing.
But lots of injuries, right?
Yeah, there was some quality in that team. You had Berghuis, who performed really well at Feyenoord. You had Van Persie the last couple of years. There were some more good players in that team. But it's fair to say that the quality he had with that Feyenoord team isn't the quality Feyenoord has now. Nowadays, Feyenoord is a much better team. He in the Champions League the following year after the title, you can make an impression there with your style of football. Feyenoord didn't reach the next phase of the Champions League this season as well, but they made a lot of impression with the way they play football, the way they pressed Atletico away, the way they outplayed Celtic a few times. And that never happened under Van Bronckhorst. The players didn't make such a growth that a lot of money was offered for them, or big teams came looking. So it was like, I think the word decent is a perfect summary for the way he plays. But as a manager, I think that's the best about him. And I think for Beşiktaş, which is a club, I think, and also the league, isn't always the easiest. I think he can manage that really well. And with the big players, I think, that's his thing. He's amazing with that.
Yeah, we can't forget, of course, the Dutch league Dutch football in general is one of the foremost leagues in terms of tactical development and things like that, alongside, Spanish La Liga, Serie A, of course, those Italian coaches, the Spanish coaches are known for that. But Turkey is very much a league of motivation, very much tactically. I mean, if you look at Galatasaray, for example, if you look at the team they have, the quality they have, and then you look at the performance in Europe, they get tactically outplayed by teams like Molde, teams like Copenhagen, teams like Sparta Prague, teams they should always be beating. So tactically, I think we aren't the most advanced league. So perhaps, that's not going to be the biggest issue. Although I did hear from Rangers then that tactically in Europe, in their run to the Europa League final, he was amazing. And they credit him for the most part for reaching that Europa League final. And I mean, they ended up losing that to Sevilla, I believe, on penalties. So they were so close to European glory. So maybe for us, it'll suffice.
Yeah, but there's just one thing. At Rangers, his first assistant was Dave Vos. He is now the coach of Young Ajax and will be an assistant for Ajax next season. And inside Ajax, he's praised for his tactics, for the way he approaches build-up, positional play. And I'm guessing that he did the most of that work at Rangers. At Feyenoord, he didn't have him. He had Jean Overgast, who's also now coming along with him, who is just a field coach, not the most special coach ever.
He's known mainly for a more defensive style, I believe, right?
Yeah, defensive, and also like Gio is really he is really an old-fashioned, not old-fashioned, I would say, but a manager, and he wouldn't always lead all the trainings and stuff, and his assistants would do the field, all the work on the field and stuff. So that's really important for him. And he's the best at managing those players, like building a relationship with them. And that's what he always was very special in, because in big games, Feyenoord would always step up under him. If it was finals, one game against Ajax, not more than that, but especially against PSV, those games, it was something, and they always performed amazing and went well. It was actually amazing to watch. Like the team would play awful for a couple of weeks. The PSV would come. It would be full press, high aggression, positionally, tactically good. So those big games, he could really load players up for that.
Yeah, that's something they kind of. I think that's one of the reasons that at Rangers it ended up ending probably a little bit earlier. I mean, obviously, had they won the Europa League, I think he would have gotten a little bit more credit. Also, the recruitment is blamed by people that he didn't really get to bring in his own players, and that was an issue because he wanted Joey Veerman, I believe, who is amazing for PSV, and he wanted who else was it? Another player that's doing really well right now, but I can't remember the name. But yeah, he was looking at some players. They didn't end up getting him. But then the big games against Celtic, I think that's one of the big reasons why he didn't last longer, is because he lost quite a few big games against Celtic. But then in the Netherlands, his big game performance was actually quite good. He also had a really big 6-2 win against Ajax
the only one.
I think that's the only win, but it's a good win, right? He had
he had one in the cup first season. I think the last minute of extra time. But then it was only the 6-2, and that was, I think, the best game we ever played under him. Because that Ajax team was the Ajax team which beat Real Madrid at Bernabeu. The team which beat Juventus with Frenkie de Jong, Matthijs de Ligt, Ziyech, all those players. And
Tadic, a lot of familiar faces you'll be seeing in the Turkish league.
It will be. But that was an amazing performance. But like we said before, it was a team the games against low blocks, against smaller opposition, which we really struggled. And I think after the 4 or 5 years, it was also done. You know, it was good like that, and Feyenoord needed to go forward. But I think he performed quite well when you look at the squad he always had, because he never had a team better than PSV or Ajax in not even 1 year. And maybe even AZ had a better team a lot of the time. So I think he can't be blamed for finishing 4th, but the titles he's won, that made up for everything.
How big do you see his impact towards paving the way for the current Feyenoord generation under Arne Slot, of course, is going to Liverpool? Do you think this success that Feyenoord has had over the last couple of years under Slot would have happened if it weren't for Van Bronckhorst?
If I'm honest, yeah, because Gio left and the technical director left, the CEO left, and there was really a revolution at Feyenoord. And then I think even if Arne Slot wouldn't have come, it would still have happened, but it would have taken longer. But we had a manager who was probably, I believe, one of the best managers probably one of the top 10 managers in the world, and the best manager I've ever seen.
Yeah,
But,
fantastic coach. Better than
yeah,
Ten Hag, I would say. I think he has a much better chance at succeeding in England.
I think, easily, because I think Ten Hag is an amazing coach. That aside, but Arne in the media with players, the way he talks, sometimes it's even frustrated, I think. If I wasn't a Feyenoord fan, if I was like an Ajax or a PSV fan, I would absolutely hate him, because you can ask him any question, there's a good answer. It's just insane. But I think even without Gio, it probably would have happened. But I think because he won that many titles, and the years after were so bad, that it was easier for Feyenoord to say, all right, we're going to go get a new director, we're going to go get a new manager, and we're really going to rebuild this club. Maybe if he wouldn't have won those titles, and the next years after it wouldn't have been that bad, that wouldn't happen.
But I do remember, like some years ago, there was a lot of talk between about the financial gap between Feyenoord, Ajax, and PSV, who were just miles and miles ahead. And obviously, the success that Van Bronckhorst had will have had a tremendous impact on closing that gap a little bit. So would have made things easier for a new CEO and all that.
Yeah, and what he was good at was using young players. He used a lot of academy players, like. I can make a whole list. It's Geertruida, Malasia, Bijlo, the goalkeeper, Vilena, Boetius. It's a long list of players, probably more than 10 players who have come through the academy and have become a starter for Feyenoord. And I think he is probably the best coach I've seen with young players. So that's really positive.
Did he give Orkun Kukcu his debut, or was that
also
later?
Yeah, also. Okay. And that was also quite special because he was 17 at the time. And
he's a really big Beşiktaş fan, by the way.
And I think he was also close to leaving that season to Beşiktaş.
Yeah, that's true. Good thing he didn't do that.
For him, I think a good thing. But
especially that time.
Yeah, but Gio, I think he was on the bench, and there was an injury in the first half, and there were some big names on the bench, like Jens Toornstra, who's a Dutch international, and some more. And he chose him to make his debut. He scored and gave an assist, and the next week I think he was in the starting lineup. He never really, he was 17, 18. He never became a starter under Van Bronckhorst because he left the next year, but definitely he gave him the opportunity, and within weeks he showed everyone at Feyenoord how good he was, because he was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and in a way, of course, win the player for the club, because if he doesn't do that, then maybe he leaves, and
Yeah, I think that was also a thing he was good at managing, because Feyenoord is probably the hardest club to be in the Netherlands, because the expectations are you're going to play for the title. In Europe, you're going to do well. The cup, you're going to do well. But, this year there is. But when Van Bronckhorst was there, they had no money. They didn't have the players. And there was a lot of pressure from the media and the fans. And he never gave up on. He always spoke out that he wanted to win the titles and he wanted to do well, but never a word about the players if they didn't perform well. Never a word about the fans if they weren't happy. Never a word about the media. And he's a gentleman. Like, for a club, he is the best you can have in the media. As a how could you say, as a person who represents the club. He's the best.
Yeah, I think in that regard, he probably is a much better fit for Beşiktaş than Jose Mourinho would have been, because Beşiktaş were also talking to Mourinho. But in terms of personality, I think he much more represents the values of the club. I don't know how much you know about Beşiktaş, but they're kind of the club in Turkey that pride themselves in a gentleman attitude, so to speak. So in that regard, I think he is a perfect fit. We'll have to wait and see whether he is tactically and all that, but definitely in terms of personality, I think it's a great fit.
As a manager, he's great. To the outside world, he's great. But tactically, he's not the most special manager ever. But he's good. He's not bad or anything.
I've also heard a lot of really positive things. You've also mentioned it as well about his relationship with players and how he communicates with them. That's something Beşiktaş have had issues with in the past, with Şenol Güneş, who was known to be a little bit hot and cold with players, depending on whether he liked the player or not. If he had a good relationship with a player, the communication would be fine. But then if they're, for example, Loris Karius famously said that Şenol Güneş basically didn't say a word to him his entire time at Beşiktaş, things like that. So that's definitely something we don't have to worry about, I think, with Giovanni. Are there any issues that you can think of that he ever had any falling out with players or anything like that?
There's one, Jean-Paul Boetius. It was in Turkey, actually. It was after a friendly against Fenerbahce. And he came on as a sub, and he needed to do a cooling down after the game. And he refused. And then there was not a fight, but it became a thing, and he left the club, actually. But he later apologized for it and also said it was not the coach's fault and he should have done it. But there were some players who were difficult in that squad at Feyenoord. For example, Steven Berghuis. He's known to be quite a difficult guy. At Ajax, the last year, there was some speculations that the old manager, Mauri Stijn, who was sacked after 10 games, he didn't want to continue if Berghuis stayed at the club. I know Dick Advocaat at Feyenoord, he had problems with him.
Interesting.
And Gio never really had problems with him. He made him captain, he made him the most important player, and he scored a lot of goals. Like, he had his best time at Feyenoord, I still think. But I'm looking, there were some other difficult players, like Eljiro Elia, who always had the reputation of being kind of a difficult guy. But at Feyenoord, he never had those problems. And there were more, but he managed that really well.
That's an interesting name you mentioned there as well, because Steven Berghuis, of course, has been linked with Beşiktaş over January as well. Around the same time, the links with Van Bronckhorst came. I'm not sure whether that was connected or what that was more the fans kind of pushing that. Because even in the summer it started, I think, after the Dusan Tadic, because Beşiktaş were actually in for Tadic before Fenerbahce were, and then they swooped in and hijacked that. And then Berghuis' name came mainly pushed through the fans, I think. But that name is being brought in connection to the club again. Do you think that Van Bronckhorst would like to be reunited with Steven Berghuis at Beşiktaş, or do you think it's something he's going to avoid?
Well, I don't think it's about being reunited. I think Steven Berghuis is an amazing player. The last 2 years, he hasn't been able to show it at Ajax. And in the end, his step from Feyenoord to Ajax hasn't been a good one, because when he left, Feyenoord became successful and Ajax has had a downfall. But still, I think he is one of the best players in the Eredivisie. And I think Gio just wants good players. So that's the most important thing. And I think if Berghuis comes into a team where he can be important, he can be one of the players who get the ball a lot, he gets freedom. Yeah, he's good for probably 15 goals a season as a right winger. But he wants to play as a midfielder himself.
He likes to play as a 10, right?
Yeah, but Gio never gave him that opportunity. He always played him as a right winger, but he had a lot of freedom. He was captain, he was the best player. He scored probably over 15 goals a season. Like, probably the best winger close to the best winger I've seen at Feyenoord.
He'll be 33, I think, later this year, or he already turned 33. Do you think still in terms of longevity, he still has it in him? Do you think he can still go? How many years at the top do you still see in Steven Berghuis?
a good two to 3 years.
Yeah?
I think he still has in him. Yeah, he's fit. This year he has had a long injury. But last season and the season before that he performed.
Yeah, I think that's
quite
also
well.
why he didn't get called up. That's what Koeman
Yeah.
said, I think. He just came back from injury, so it wouldn't make too much sense. Okay, so that's good to already get a little bit of information on that. It's good that you mentioned that. Maybe Steven Berghuis, because I do think he wants to leave Ajax, so perhaps he will come to Beşiktaş this summer. So thank you for that. Then a couple of more things, if you still have time.
Yeah.
So obviously we talked about some of the highlights, but there also were, of course, lesser moments. We already talked about the 7-game winless streak in his first season, which they did end up winning the cup in. So that's not a bad start, of course. But then there's also, how should I put it, the debacle of Trenčín.
I knew you would get it up. Yeah. That was quite bad.
How was that? Was that really his? Was that a managerial failure? Was it a player issue? What do you think went wrong there? Because Feyenoord lost the away game 4-0, and Beşiktaş had actually very similar game against Metalist Kharkiv once, I think in 2008 or something, where we went there and we got absolutely demolished.
Yeah, that game, what can I say about it? That squad wasn't a good squad. And it was the first game of the season, I think, because it was a preliminary round. Mm-hmm. And the mistake he made probably was he left some players at home. I think he left Van Persie at home. And Toornstra as well, I think, because it was artificial grass. And he thought like, if we get a draw there or just a small loss, we can fix it at home. Mm-hmm. But more games happened. The small teams, they totally surprised us by the counterattacks were the most important thing. We had two guys at the back, Erik Botteguin and Jan-Ari van der Heijden. They were so slow. And I remember Trenčín, like every attack, every time the ball went forward, it was dangerous. And the second game was insane as well, because I think Feyenoord had like probably 9 or 10 opportunities which should have been a goal. They could have easily fixed it there, but that is probably the worst outing I've ever seen Feyenoord European wise, because apart from that he hasn't done a lot in Europe, because also in the Champions League we were pointless after 5 games. Mm-hmm. Which wasn't amazing as well.
Difficult group though, of course, right? With Napoli and Manchester City.
And Shakhtar.
And Shakhtar, so yeah, Shakhtar.
They were all top of the league.
And Shakhtar back then, that's before the war. That's still when Shakhtar was...
It was the Shakhtar with Fred and Bernard. And Fred, probably the best player I've ever seen live.
Yeah, he plays for Fenerbahce now. He's incredible.
Amazing. But European-wise, it wasn't a big success. And that's mainly because probably what I said, like... tactically, it's not the best ever, and maybe that's also in how you analyze opponents. And probably he thought like, Trenčín was like, I think the number 5 Slovakia or Slovenia, I don't even know. And they probably underestimated it, and it was the most painful loss under him, if I remember, but there would be a few other ones, I think.
Were you surprised then when Rangers went on to beat the likes of Red Bull Leipzig and Dortmund in the Europa League?
I actually was, but we knew Dave Vos, who was his important assistant. We knew him. We spoke to him at FC Afkicken, and I think everyone had a good impression of him. So I think he was really important in analyzing opponents, in the tactical side of play, while Gio is amazing in loading up the players, getting the motivation in. So I was surprised, but I think he needs an assistant like that. And Jean-Paul van Gastel is a good friend of his, and they've been over the world. But I hope there's a good assistant also left who's tactically a bit better, because I think he needs that.
This was mentioned though as well, because it's one of the reasons he didn't come in January is because Van Gastel couldn't get out of his contract with NAC Breda. And apparently he didn't want to commit to a job without Van Gastel again, because apparently Van Gastel adds something to his repertoire that they missed at Rangers.
Yeah.
Do you have any idea what that could be? What Van Gastel could contribute to the puzzle?
To be honest, I don't know. But you know what's important for managers as well, and I think going abroad it's even more important. It's that you have people around you can trust. Mm-hmm. You can talk about everything. I think Gio and Van Gastel are just they're really good with each other. They know what they can expect from each other. They know they can count on each other. I think that's the most important thing. Probably also at a club like Beşiktaş, in a league which isn't, which can be quite chaotic, I can say.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think you need an assistant around you can totally trust, and he has that with Van Gastel. But well, while Van Gastel has been promoted to the Eredivisie with NAC, he played such bad football there the whole season.
Yeah, I heard about it.
He was the head coach this year, and it was awful. But then the playoffs for going up to the Eredivisie started, and out of nowhere they played 4 or 5 good games, and they're now promoted.
I mean, those last 2 games were incredible, right? Like they won the first one 6-2, and then then the return it was 4-0, and then I think they score in the end.
Yeah,
what an absolutely bonkers final.
Yeah, that's the Eredivisie for you. But he isn't an amazing assistant coach. So I hope there's one more around him who's tactically a bit better. I think then it can really become successful, because if he has the people around him who can fill that job, he's amazing.
And Vos is staying with Ajax for sure. That's
he's becoming the assistant for the first team.
So maybe in a couple of years.
Farioli.
Yeah. Another familiar face for the Turkish fans.
Yeah, I'm also looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'm curious about that as well. He had some good ideas in Turkey, but I don't think he ever overperformed with the teams he had, because he had some good quality players. And then his successors at those clubs did better, I would say, at least result-wise. But yeah, very interesting appointment. Did okay at Nice as well. I don't think they overperformed. I think they finished 5th or something. Yeah, which is kind of what you'd expect from Nice. So
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. But he's at least sleeping at the club, so that's important for the people.
Well, I don't think it matters that much for you if he does well or not, does it?
No, it doesn't. I think Feyenoord is in a really good place right now.
Yeah. Is it already known? Did they go with Brian Priske, or is it not?
Yeah, or Graham Potter. It's the other
Graham Potter.
candidates.
That's a very interesting.
Yeah, it's those are the last 2 candidates, but it's going to be Brian Priske probably.
Okay, well he did amazing, of course, in the Europa League against Galatasaray, so.
Yeah,
he's capable, and he was at Antwerp as well for a while. Did a decent.
Yeah, and he's done good everywhere, I think. And Feyenoord just is in a good place, stable, good scouting, good players. It's all right.
All right. Well, Nicky, thank you very much for your time. Do you have any social media that you would like to plug?
Do I have any social media I want to plug? Just go ahead and check FC Afkicken. It's amazing. We make really nice content.
You really do.
Apart from, and apart from that, no, not really. Just watch a lot of football.
I mean, if you're in the Netherlands or in Belgium, watch FC Afkicken for sure. I think you guys kind of started the whole online YouTube podcasting thing, right? Because now we have a lot of stuff in Belgium as well. We have 90 minutes, we have mid and all that. But I mean, you guys started it like years and years ago.
Yeah, we were one of the first ones, I think.
Trendsetters.
Yeah, you could say.
All right, thank you very much, Nicky, and all the best to Feyenoord this season, of course.
Yes, and all the best to Beşiktaş.
Thank you very much.